I see God's light shining in each of you. The humanity that you are is the spiritual expression of the love of God, moving in and through and as you. The title of today's lesson is Full. Full, one word, no punctuation, one word by itself. When I sent the title to the office, somehow between my email and the newsletter, it got punctuated. It grew a question mark at the end. Full? If you remember Victor Borges. Are you full? Which is something my Polish grandmother would never ask. She would just assume that if I cleared my plate and it was empty, that I was still hungry, and she would put more food on my plate. She doesn't have to ask you, you're full. Your plate's empty, you must be hungry.
I shouldn't sit in the front row.
Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. Joy is the infallible sign of the presence of God. And finally from Jesus, I have come that you may have life and have it to the full. From these scriptures and these writings, I draw on the idea of being sufficiently supplied, having a full and abundant life, and being full of joy as an expression of God being present in your life. My life, your life, our lives. The expression of God in our lives is that we are full of joy. In our human evolution, we are being irresistibly drawn. We're being drawn, like there's a vortex pulling us forward to a state of human awareness which Pierre called the omega point. We are human beings. We are evolving. It's inevitable. It's irresistible. It's irreversible. It's going to happen to you. And at this point, in the omega point, the idea of separation, of tribalism, of sexism, of ageism, of all of the isms, they drop away. There's only one. It's just one. It's sort of like it's a train that you already got on, and even if you fell asleep while the train was going, you still wind up where the train was going. You ever had that experience and you wake up and you go, where am I? Rockbridge. Okay, I have 2 more stops. We're not all there yet. We haven't all arrived. Some of us are in pain. Some of us are struggling. We may have lost someone that we love. We may have had a financial setback. Or we might be dealing with health issues, or just the ordinariness of our bodies aging. We see stories of violence. Someone shooting up a movie theater. Police shooting minors in South Africa. We could use these things as evidence for there's no such thing as the omega point. You could use that as evidence. How can you believe that we're all being pulled towards a higher awareness in human consciousness when there's still violence in the street and my knee hurts? You know, somebody's experienced either hurt or abuse and they say, why did this happen to me? What did I do to bring this on myself? Or we may see somebody struggling or in pain, and a thought creeps in. What did they do to get themselves in that situation? What part of their karma are they playing out? And when we think in those terms, we're not aware of it. We might not be aware of it because they're ingrained in our race consciousness. our race consciousness that we're leaving behind, but our race consciousness, our culture, and our language has been formed and shaped by the Christian epic and the Christian narrative. And the Christian narrative has been where we get preached to and we sing and we think and we believe that we are born in sin. We're born in sin and that we are sinners, and we need a parental God to come and rescue us from our sin. That's, whether you believe that or not, that's in our language. We inherited that type of language, whether you were ever Christian or not. You live in a society that was formed by a bunch of Christians who wrote in English all about the Christian myth. Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a
Wretch.
I didn't even have to do much to prompt you to think that's automatic. You came up with the word. I was going to say soul, but you said wretch. Because I translate that one. I won't sing that one anymore. If they write in wretch like me and I'm in a visiting church, I won't sing it. I'll sing soul. But it's already in our consciousness, it's in our culture, it's in our language. So we see somebody suffering, and it's like they must be being punished for something we did. If we're suffering, we must believe that we're wretched and therefore God is punishing us. So our suffering is the result of God punishing us. Rather than, I have inflammation in my knee and it hurts. That's factual. And then and God's punishing me for something I did. I don't buy it. I believe in the depth of my being that we are transforming ourselves and our world, and there is an irresistible urge to do so. We are transforming ourselves and our world, and it's a future state. It's a place that we're going to, and it's a place in consciousness right now. It has to exist both as an idea and a place to get to. It's an idea right now, but it's an idea inside of consciousness. So it's pulling us forward, pulling us towards it. So it's here right now, this concept, this idea of it's all one. And it's not theoretical. It is an evolutionary process that's pulling us into it. And yet, I still live in a world where seemingly bad things happen. Again from Pierre. The question of why bad things happen to good people transmutes itself into a very different question. No longer asking why something happened, but asking rather, how will I respond? How will I respond to this thing that is in my world? What do I intend to do now? What will I do now that this thing has happened? So how will you respond? How will you respond in your being? How will you be in your life? You can have the experience of joy in the midst of pain. You can stop the suffering and move into this idea of joy. It's possible. It's possible to be one filled with joy. Well, how? First, you have to entertain the possibility that it's possible. You have to entertain the possibility that you could walk around filled with joy all the time. Full, all the time. In my grandmother's house, I was full, all the time. Never was I hungry in my grandmother's house. In God's house, you never have to be hungry. Your connection to spirit never has to be severed or separate.